It's April 2nd, 2025. An interesting day for Cambodia and for a lot of the world. The Trump administration has just announced big tariffs on a lot of countries and trying to kind of rebalance a lot of how kind of tariffs work across the world. I guess the goal is to create more free trade. So we just had this announcement that Cambodia is looking at a 44% tariff on exports to the US. And currently today, it's a big share of Cambodia's exports. It's at about 12 billion, whereas US imports to Cambodia is about 300 million. So anyway, this is very topical, and I know that you have a good vantage point on this, being involved in like the manufacturing space here. So just want to get your sense on that and that news that's just come out.
Yeah, I think it's sent a shockwave to a lot of countries, in Cambodians included. I mean, Donald Trump, he specifically mentioned Cambodia when he go through the list, like, 97% tariff. But the 97%, I don't know how they calculated it. I know a lot of people take a look at how that calculation might come through. And one of the theory is the trade deficit between the US and Canada. And if you take a look at, US and Cambodia, and if you take a look at the difference in the trade deficit, I think it's around that. So in Cambodia, manufacturing per se, in the short term, it's okay. Because when you look at tariff like these, you want to compare to tariff that the US put in other countries that have similar industry the way that Cambodia are doing, which is garment factory. So for example, let's take a look at Bangladesh, where's their tariff? I think it's like high 30%. Vietnam also have garment sector that export to the US. So you want to compare those tariffs with these countries. If the tariff only placed in Cambodia, for example, then it would be a big issue for sure. But because tariff is being put broadly across all these nations, I think all it does, even in the long term, all it does is just raising price for the U.S. consumer, because there's no way textile is moving back to the U.S. manufacturer.
Right. So of the 12 billion that's exported today, what percent of that would be garments or other industries?
I don't even know the exact number for garment, but garment would make a big portion of that for sure.
Big portion, yeah. Yeah, so I think the clear message here is that like it's a way to bring people back to the negotiating table, and of course with Cambodia today, they're importing 300 million worth of US goods a year, and so if they were able to then adapt some of those tariffs, it wouldn't obviously have a huge impact because it's not that big of a amount. So I think that's obviously one way that you could quickly try to resolve some of this. So I guess that's what they might be looking at. That's what the phone calls coming in today is gonna all be about. So it's gonna be interesting to see like which countries really like kind of lean in and try and get this resolved quickly, and who retaliates. It's gonna be an interesting time.
I think it's gonna be quite interesting to see how different nations respond to this. I mean, if you look at Canadian response, the Canadian government, the new PM, Mark Carney, his response is very pretty much hard, strong. He's not bending the knees. He's doing retaliatory tariff. Ontario putting tariff on energy that being export to the US. So all of these sort of nation-to-nation response will be interesting to see. I feel like El Salvador, respond to it differently than Canada. And so I think for us, we're just waiting to see what's the big picture is going to play out in the next few months and few years between Cambodia and the US. But I think the one thing that will put the US in the top position, if it's all countries are treating this tariff the same way as Canadian government treating these tariff, which is initiating this trade war, and there's just raising consumer price everywhere, going to be pushing different countries to deep recession. I mean, it's a nightmare scenario. And I think this is a situation where the US is saying that, hey, we are the biggest consumer nation in the world, and so all of these producers have to bend the knees to us. I think that's what the US are wanting to do. But if all countries are lockstep, go hand in hand, work together, I mean, there's some news came out that China, Japan, South Korea might try to work together with economic agreement. Mexico is making calls with Canadian government trying to make move. So we'll see what happens. But I think at the end of the day, what we have to do, this is where it's going to be testing nation patriotism. Look at Canada. Canada now, the patriotic feeling is through the roof.
Right.
Like Buy Canada is such a huge movement there, right? And then if you take a look at the Canadian that actually visiting the U.S., the number dropped dramatically. So let's see how different nations, also Cambodian people, are responding to this.
Yeah, I think the other thing that a lot of people kind of miss is that the average, because everyone goes, okay, we have free trade across the world. But I was looking at some graphic the other day, and it was looking at, prior to the Trump administration, like maybe obviously it's gone up a little bit, but the average G20 tariff rate was something like 15%. I think the average for the US was like 5%. So I think the point that the new administration is making is like, we want more free trade, but we want like some of these countries that, we accept all their goods at like at a pretty low tariff, but yet we can't sell our stuff into their market. So I think that's like hopefully the rational situation where it's like you try and create some more balance.
But
but it's hard. It's hard.
If that is their goals, and if their goals is to have a lower trade barriers between the U.S. and all these countries, and also Donald Trump keeps saying that to bring manufacturing back to the U.S. If that is their goal, truly, I feel like the tariff would be very specific countries to countries, industry to industry, but it wouldn't go a blanket tariff that going to affect. Basically, the U.S. saying, if it's not shown on that list, the tariff is 10% out of all these countries. So all these blanket tariff, it doesn't make sense because it's just raising prices for the U.S. consumer.
Right.
If, for example, they say, look, we want to bring chip manufacturing back to the U.S., then they just targeting to TSMC trying to get investment there. But Taiwan did make commitment. TSMC did make commitment to open factories in the U.S. and they still got hit with tariff.
Right.
So nobody knows. There's some economists that say nobody knows what Donald Trump is thinking about or wanting to do. And there are some guesses that say, hey, he wants to bring all these countries, to the negotiation table to make a trade barrier to be less between countries. But we'll see. Right.
You start a negotiation at the wildest end, and then you try and come to a middle ground. I think the issue a lot of people have is like how many battles can you fight at once, right? So yeah, it's a complicated moment. I think for a lot of people that have money in the stock market or other liquid markets, it's not what people expected for Q1. But to be honest, if you look back at the beginning of his last administration, it was actually a similar thing with you had this like run up in the markets of excitement, and then there was like this 3-4 month period of him actually laying out his plan, and everyone getting a bit worried about what it's going to look like. So yeah, but specifically thinking about the impact on Cambodia, what would you say the current kind of setup looks like for the let's say the garment industry as of now? Has it been improving? Do you think we're kind of on a good trajectory? Let's say prior to this, were things looking up in terms of like how garments are doing?
Right. So I think even for government industries and other manufacturing industry that currently export from Cambodia to the U.S., it's not going to change with this new tariff. And like I mentioned before, it's not going to change because other countries that also export into the U.S. with similar product are also get hit by tariff. And so in that case, the companies that choose to open the factory here, if they choose to open a factory in Bangladesh or in Vietnam, they're still facing the same or similar tariff.
Right.
And so all of these, we have to understand from a company perspective. When companies, decide to move their factory to Cambodia, Cambodia would be one of the few options that they would be considering. Bangladesh, Vietnam, and maybe other low-wage nations are attractive to those companies. And then they would select, okay, what's the best country for them to invest in? And then they took a look. So all this formula, they are calculating this formula. Tariff do make a play into that calculation, but as long as the tariff is more blanket, the same way that the US are putting today, that Bangladesh and Vietnam and other countries that are producing garment also getting hit by tariff, then the calculation, all it does is just raising that price for the company to consider. And I really believe Cambodia, there's a lot of advantage that are why it's so attractive for all these companies to come and move here to Cambodia.
What would you say some of the main advantages are? Yeah.
One of the big advantage is that Cambodia might not be the lowest cost for salary anymore,
Right.
but the biggest advantage is stability.
Stability.
And that
Well, you've
was
seen what happened in Bangladesh,
yes.
right? That's an example. And of course, I think I was talking to someone in the garment industry the other day, and they were talking about how there had been some big issues in Vietnam with some of the CEOs in the garment industry that got, let's say, treated rather punitively. Like if you get things wrong in Vietnam, it can be quite a scary situation. Whereas I think in Cambodia, it's a little bit more. There's a little bit more of understanding of like open to doing business and resolving issues in a slightly less in a slightly more calm way, let's say.
Yeah, because all of these companies, when they invest into a country, they're not investing just for the business of this year or next year. I mean, for them to make the investment opening a factory here, it has to make sense 10 years from now, at minimum.
Right.
And so how would they make that decision if they don't know if the country will be as stable as it is? Like you said, look at Bangladesh. I'm sure there are companies that were looking at Bangladesh that now no longer consider Bangladesh as a destination to
Right.
open their factories, because what are the risks involved? Any instability that occur in the country will affect the labor market a lot, will
Right.
affect the raw materials that are being imported, will affect the rule and regulation that are being put in place. I think Cambodia, stability is our number one advantage for sure. But even beyond that, everyone can agree that year over year, Cambodia rules, law, and regulation is improving dramatically to make it very open and very easy for business to come here. Let's look at all the e-government initiative that the
Yeah.
government been doing. Like, this is not normal in other underdeveloped or developing countries to be moving this fast to make it easy for business to invest in.
Yeah, I think that's one indicator that I remember there was this ease of doing business index that I think a lot of people were like were focused on. It does seem like the new administration here in Cambodia is quite focused on that, on just trying to streamline a lot of business processes. Yeah. What would you say are some of the initiatives that you're excited about that are making business, the ease at which you do business here?
I think the e-government is make a big change for sure in terms of making sure business are working more efficiently. That's one of the big thing. Another big thing is all of these incentive for special economic zone in Cambodia. So those special economic zone is a big advantage and very attractive to company to come and invest into Cambodia. I was in a meeting with GIZ talking about auxiliary company in the supply chain industry to support special economic zone company. That conversation only exists because there are companies investing into special economic zone, that there are manufacturing company opening them. And so now the conversation is, yes, special economic zone having a lot of manufacturers that improving the product that they build here in Cambodia, but also the big benefit, not only does it help the labor market in Cambodia, but it actually have a downstream effect where the supply chain company, like our company, actually been able to grow quite dramatically because we would be able to supply to these companies in the special economic zone. So in a way, the government have done a really good job on making Cambodia and special economic zone to be an attractive place for companies to open their companies in. And in a way, it's uplift the whole countries in the labor market, in the supply chain market. And I think going forward, you will see more and more incentive for business to come here to Cambodia.
And yeah, what does the diversification look like in terms of exports and manufacturing here? I think there's a big focus on kind of value add manufacturing and agriculture, obviously like more industrial manufacturing, diversifying, let's say, from garments, right? Where would you say a lot of the investment or interest is right now?
Right. I think right now, some of the common industry is making a huge GDP contribution, and that is garment, that is agriculture, that's tourism, all of these traditional sector. But I think what the government is aiming to do, and they are putting strategy that really change the equation, and that is focus on advanced manufacturing or higher skill level manufacturing. And Cambodia, we set a really ambitious goal of 2050 high income countries,
High income country,
right?
yeah.
And if that were to be reached, we cannot rely on government sector alone.
Of course,
We
yeah.
have to move to advanced manufacturing.
Right.
But there are initiatives that are being put in place. The Skill Development Fund of upskilling 1.5 million Cambodian, like all these strategies are in a way pushing the sector upward. And even the center that I'm involved in, the Cambodian-Japan Digitalized Manufacturing Center, this is focusing on upskilling engineers to advanced manufacturing level. This center did not exist 5 years ago. And this center that we have in Cambodia is actually very special. There are no similar center that actually available to the general public the same way CJDM is. Even in the region, and the quality and the standard of the equipment that we have here is also very high. So this is a huge opportunity.
Right.
Now the question is this: can the higher education system or higher education level catch up to that level? If the industry or the company that being attracted to Cambodia require really high skilled engineer, can the university level change fast enough to adapt to that? That's the big question.
That's the big question. Okay. I mean, would that just require a lot of investment from the public sector into universities, and also like trying to encourage more private universities to set up campuses here?
I think the private university will make a difference, but we have to remember, in order for a country to really move as a country, it cannot only rely on private education.
Right.
It has a strong public university to help enforce that. The question, I don't think is only on investment, because, for example, all universities now have access to CJDM. And we're working with a few universities, but some of those universities are private universities. We're still waiting on the mindset shift in the public university to say, look, this is not about attracting students to my university specifically. This is about working together among different universities, among different centers, and to uplift the engineering students, to equip them with the right tools to succeed in the industry. And I think mindset changes in the management of those public universities are the key to unlock this. Because there are times where we're facing difficulty really explaining and getting those public universities to really understand the value of advanced manufacturing, which is funny to say, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds so obvious saying it out loud, saying, hey, it should make sense that engineer should be trained on the latest equipment on advanced manufacturing. But believe it or not, some of these people in public university in the leadership role, they do not have that mindset that allow them to really adjust and adapt to the changing environment of education and industry.
Yeah, I think the one good thing though one key good thing about Cambodia when you compare it to Southeast Asia is that we still have some of the best demographics in the region, whereby like the average age of Cambodia is like 27. So you still have this big group of youngsters that are coming of age in a digital time, whereas like the average age of Thailand, for example, the average age of a Thai person is 42. It's the same as Western Europe. So the question is a 42-year-old more adaptable than a 27-year-old? I would bet on the 27-year-old, but mostly because these younger people also have a lot of technology at their disposal, and they've come of age when that's come through, like Chat GPT, like, all this stuff that's helping people learn a bit quicker and also get access to, like, obviously all these like ed tech platforms. So I think that's pretty exciting. There is a way to make, I think, education move quicker in a digital age, especially when you've got a more adaptable young population. So it's really just Cambodia, Philippines, Laos that still have that kind of really younger demographic. I mean, Vietnam's just crossed to like 32, 33. Their fertility rates actually dropped quite a lot significantly. I think Cambodia still has this really interesting like moment where, like in the next 5 years, if they really push on investing in that youth to become like these the thinkers of tomorrow, it could be really exciting to see. Yeah.
Right. And I think you're completely right. This is our chance. This is our chance as a country to really leapfrog the industry and some of the competition. By competition, I mean countries that similar stage that we are in. This is our chance. And as much as we have to, yes, applaud ourselves at how far we came, at the trajectory that we are moving forward, all the positive that the government's doing, it's great. And if you look at the GDP growth over the past 20 years, Cambodia is the country to be in, for sure. At the same time, we have to asking ourselves hard question. We have to say, where can we improve? Where can we do better to really change this, to really catch on this next wave? AI, artificial intelligence, we had this conversation maybe last year, right?
Yeah.
This is a great equalizer.
Right.
This is the great equalizer, and the youth, the young people in Cambodia here are catching it on really quickly.
Right.
And now it just, can the public education catch up to that level of innovation?
Well, then the question is, how many people are going to be self-educated as well?
Exactly.
And does that take the pressure off of the more formal education system?
I think yes. I think it's in some industry, the worker, I think, is enough to self-study. But there are some sector that I think should still go through formal education. And that's engineering, being one of them. Like, medical school, like doctors, I would prefer my doctor to go through formal education.
Right, like to get it, like, for example, I think learning marketing is something that
you can self-study.
Yeah, self-study. I think learning finance is, to some extent, customer service, things. I think there is a lot of sectors where you won't. I think less and less will you require as much of a formal education.
Graphic designers, all these sort of sector is basically, or even the famous saying in Canada and the US is some company, they only hire CS students that drop out.
Yes.
Because they think that computer science, like the programmer that drop out, are actually the brilliant one, right? So that's the funny story.
The other thing people are saying is, I saw this from a guy saying you shouldn't look like. I think obviously hardware is different, but software is at getting to this point where you're just like, a lot of people are even questioning whether you should even learn to code, right? Because obviously there are AI tools out there, and there are AIs that are capable of coding at just a far greater accuracy than the average. I'm sure there's some really great coders out there that, of course, eclipse the current state of AI right now, but it's a matter of time, sadly.
Yeah. I think so too. And vibe coding is a big thing. I think even the people that non-technical are dabbing their toes in just using cursive or using ChatGPT or using all these Lovable. There's so many.
I
tools.
recently built a website with this thing called Replit, and it was just so easy. and like seamless. Like I was just having a chat with this AI and going, I want this, and like there was no, I didn't need any sort of coding, experience.
I'll say something that if my company is relying on coding or software, I would be very nervous.
Yeah, I think the SaaS business is going to have some issues, especially in developed markets to begin with, because of the ease at which you can automate, or you could run it's interesting, OpenAI just launched their thing, they're calling them operator, right? So you can pay for an agent, but interestingly enough, they are coming in at quite a high price. They're saying if you want to have that much GPU dedicated to your own agent, we're going to charge it like $2,000 to $10,000 a month. So of course that's high, but you could have that agent build you for a company of X size. They could literally just be building you your some of your software tools that you're already using without paying those companies. So I think that's probably going to be the use case to begin with. But I think what I would say is for SaaS businesses in, let's say, Southeast Asia or Africa or a lot more emerging markets, I think at least what we see when we look at businesses, there's still such a gap between, let's say, SMEs and that are online yet, that in order to sell a software product, you actually need to do a lot of you actually need to do a bit of tutorials. You need to kind of do a lot of onboarding. It's not like an SME in Cambodia does not just log into a SaaS website and go, okay, yeah, boom, 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 I'll sign up. I mean, some may, but that's what we see. So there's still this huge amount of businesses that are just not even online yet. And so you can take them to SaaS, and then eventually they'll go, oh, we can do this ourselves with AI. And I think that would be kind of the steps, I guess.
But the question is, what is the adoption rate for each of these process, right? And if the end goal for all these companies is going to AI agent, for example, right? For example, if this is a consensus agreement that, hey, all these companies going to AI agent, and they might stop by SaaS company along the way, but if that adoption rate between them going to SaaS company, between SaaS company to AI agent is getting shorter and shorter. Now, if I put my investor hat on, is that the sort of risk I'm willing to take, right? That the SaaS company I'm investing in is going to adaptable enough to be able to get ready for this new changing world? I think that's the question that a lot of, you listen to a bunch of podcasts. We talked about this the other day, right?
Yeah.
And some of these VC coming up to those podcasts and talking about, hey, where is the investment going to go now? Because a SaaS company, even the formula that they use to evaluate SaaS company is now changing.
Yeah, I think the average multiple on a SaaS business is definitely contracting significantly. I think before, during the boom during COVID times, with all the liquidity, I think it was at least 10x, kind of 10x on a good business, and now it's looking more like 5 on the ARR multiple. So yeah, I was reading this guy who's been involved in the startup investment space in Southeast Asia for a long time, and he's probably one of the most active angel groups in the region. They've probably collectively done 100, 200 deals, a lot of software. And he was saying the big trend that he's observing amongst these the VCs is that they're now more so becoming more like small cap private equity, whereby they're focusing more on these essential businesses that generate cash flow. So things like education, like healthcare, like F&B. And so yeah, it's that basically there's an invalidation of obsessing over just investing in technology, right? Because yeah, technology is now going. I mean, now it's a winner take. I mean, to some extent, it's going to be a winner takes all for these big AI companies.
I think it's going to be a big test also to entrepreneurs that really in the business sector right now, to really test how adaptable, how quickly can they pivot their business with the new changing environment that's happening almost daily now. And now adding on top of technology changes, now we have all these sort of tariff news and all these macroeconomic changes that they have to be adaptable and to be ready. I think it's a big test and a big challenge to entrepreneurs to see if they're ready to really put that ideology, that startup or the entrepreneur has to be fast moving, has to be adaptable to the limit, to the test here. I think it's going to be quite interesting. I mean, I'm ready to see what's the next 5 years going to bring,
right?
And how the world going to look in 5 years from now.
Yeah, I mean, actually, it's a good kind of segue to what's going on in the startup and technology space in Cambodia. I think the other big bit of news that we got um, at the beginning of this year, or as the Trump administration came in, is that obviously they're pretty much giving up on the whole concept of U.S. aid. I mean, not completely. I'm sure some programs are still going to be moving forward, but let's say that the less essential ones that would fit more in this kind of like soft power category are mostly being like sunset. So, there was a lot of programs that were being run in Cambodia that sadly no longer are going to have the funding. And a lot of that, and it was the big thing when I first came here in 2020, 2021, the big thing that you noticed in the startup space is that there are a lot of accelerators and incubators and whatever buzzword people were using that were being run by the NGO sector, right? Or by like X countries development organization. So, and I think those had mixed results in terms of the impact on startups. And yeah, so I think that's a big shift that's happening now. Maybe it was even happening before this, because I think what you see in most other countries that have built like successful startup ecosystems is it's usually when you have entrepreneurs that have done well and got their first exit that then become the new VCs of tomorrow. And so, like, I mean, in Cambodia, you look at what's just happened with Num24, one of the first like really serious exits. And so then I think what you'll see is more of these founders that have managed to build something substantial and exit look to them be the investors in the next crop of technology startups, and there'll be less of a desire to join programs that maybe don't, like, let's say programs that aren't run by founders that don't result in actual investment. Yeah,
I agree with your assessment. That, I mean, I'm biased because I'm a founder,
yeah,
right? And I'm biased because I think programs that like incubator or accelerator or programs that meant to help startup should be run by former founders,
right,
in my opinion.
right,
I
right.
think getting somebody from academia or getting somebody from corporate, and corporate may be slightly even better than from academia to run these
Yeah.
things, right? But I feel like a successful founder, for example, if Nyamupai founder suddenly running an incubator and
Oh
accelerator,
yeah, everyone would be lining up for it. Yeah.
yes, and I think they have a better shot at making it a success as well.
Right.
And coming back to USAID fund, there is a quote, a Cambodian quote, is so effective in this moment to really revisit the quote. And the quote is this: "Kumpeng deng ham ke do," which means do not rely on other people to breathe the air for you. I think for
That's a
me,
good one. That's a good one.
for me, this is as an individual, as a company, and as a country, we have to rely on ourselves.
Right.
And I think if we are getting used to relying on other people to help us moving forward,
Yeah.
it's not stable.
I think it creates the wrong attitude with
Exactly.
founders, that they just go from one kind of accelerator to the next, and maybe they get a little bit of capital here and there and a little bit of support, and it kind of keeps the hope alive. And that's not necessarily what you want. You want someone to say, you know what, it's not working. Maybe move on to another business and find some new co-founders, and not this constant like glass half full, like, okay, it's all going to be, keep going. That's not super helpful. I think an actual co-founder who's actually been through launching a startup, which is not some happy clappy fun thing. It's hard. It's not supposed to be easy. They will tell you the real hard truths about
Yes.
whether you should actually be doing this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And also, I think we're connected a lot because we went through this experience
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
But another problem with incubator or program or even competition that run by founder startup is the criteria that they give to the startup to compete in, or the criteria that they give for startup to get in is already a wrong criteria, a
Yes.
wrong measurement. And so what happened is they actually shape the startup to become reliance on grants. And it's not reliance on actually profitability or sustainability
Right.
that a startup or company should focus on. And now you have all of these programs that really
Yeah.
put startup or give the wrong advice to startup.
Right.
But you have to look, what are the KPI? KPI driven some of these things, right? If the KPI for the incubator, for the accelerator, are being put by NGOs, uh, maybe the NGO is putting the wrong KPI to those incubator as well. And now the incubator is passing that KPI along.
Like we don't need sadly, I think trying to launch like a climate tech startup is like, okay, maybe one day that will work, but like let's focus on the core sectors, right? That where if you build a business, you're going to create sustainable income, you're going to be able to employ a lot of people, you're going to have an inherent impact, as opposed to these kind of long shot ideas that are maybe just starting in the West or starting in wherever, you know, people that come up with the ideas are from, but they're maybe not the essential parts of the economy that a founder might be better off focusing on. Like to be honest, like a lot of software businesses don't really get a great look, or like the technology stuff doesn't really get that much of a look because they say, oh, doesn't have that much impact, right? But yeah, those can be some of the more sustainable businesses because they have, you know, good economies of scale and all that stuff.
Look, I like to put a disclaimer. You know, I'm saying all of this, but I've been through that journey.
Yeah.
No, I've been through the journey of hopping between incubator, between accelerator, and some of it are great. I'm not saying all those experiences are negative for me. No,
Right.
all those are great.
No, I think it's important to say, like, there are, you know,
There are
of
some
course,
good ones out
yeah,
there.
there are some great ones out there. But some have not like on the feedback of founders. That's all I'm basing this on. Is some of them have not been as helpful as they would have expected. Yeah.
And some of the incubator accelerator that I was a part of, it is run by former founder. And I think that's the clear difference
Right.
is you can see, like when I'm sitting in front of them, the question that they ask me, making me very stressed because those are
Yeah.
really critical questions that I need to
Yeah.
answer. It's nothing about fluff. You know,
Yeah.
I think they hit it right on, you know, and I wish that some of the center or some of the accelerator, incubator here can run on that model.
So yeah, and what would you say like today? Like if you were, let's say you were running an accelerator, and what sectors would you be telling startups to really dive into here?
I mean, I'm very biased,
Yeah.
so I'm going to skip manufacturing because I could talk about just pushing startup into manufacturing.
Yeah.
Because manufacturing, the supply chain here is ripe for companies to disrupt, for sure. Um, but if I talk about just manufacturing, it's almost like I'm just, you know, tooting my own horns here. But outside of manufacturing, I think we have to take a look at sector that really, you know, okay, so let me take a step back. You know, the one philosophy that I really hold true is that, you know, famously Jeff Bezos says a quote. He's saying, for entrepreneurs, you have to ask yourself, you know, a lot of entrepreneurs are only looking at what's going to be changed 10 or 20 years from now. But the question that entrepreneurs forgot to ask themselves is what's going to stay the same 10, 20 years from now?
Yeah.
And I think that is the question that startup or new company in Cambodia have to ask.
Yeah.
Yes, things are changing, but what is still going to be essential, right? So, for example, if we think that Cambodia is still going to be a huge tourism country,
Yeah.
then maybe a startup focusing on tourism could be something that works.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Tourism's not going anywhere.
Tourism's not going
Yeah.
anywhere. For us, we're making a bet in manufacturing. We think that no matter how much technology evolve, vibe coding is not going to convert to vibe welding, you know, or vibe milling. Like,
Yeah.
so these sort of things is going to require. And so this is what our bet is on.
Yeah.
Right. So I think for startup and company, take a look at some of these things, right? And I think you're right. Is some of these startups are being influenced, you know, by countries that in a different stage
Yeah.
than Cambodia.
Very different stage. Yeah. Yeah. So you can't. Yeah. You need to kind of apply the realities on the ground. I think that's a good way to think about it. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people think about what's changing. They don't think about what's staying the same. Yeah. So tell us a bit more about what's going on with Quantum and your business, and then like any big updates to share. What are you guys focused on for the next few years?
Yeah. So I think I think every year we talk is always like, oh yeah, we're working on this crazy
Yeah.
big project.
Yeah.
And it's true. And it happened like every year to years, we've been growing on average more than 100% growth year over year. And it sounds impressive in the first couple of years, right? But it's in our fifth years and we're still growing at that pace. And I think this is where it really showed that the models that Quantum is making is different than other manufacturing company. In hardware manufacturing, a 15 to 20% growth year over year is considered already good. And so the stuff that we're doing here, we're growing at the pace of a software company. And so this is the sort of projects or technology that we're bringing to Cambodia. We want to be a role models in the supply chain sector, in the manufacturing sector here, that we can innovate. We don't have to copy and paste the models from other countries in manufacturing sector. We can really make our own innovation, our own manufacturing innovation here. And the goal for us is to export these models across some of the other regions that we're doing. We're working with international companies now, more than national companies. We have projects with other countries and other projects.
What kinds of, just to give people an idea, like what kinds of manufacturing are you focusing on?
Yeah, so for us, we're focusing on building machinery, equipment and machinery. So that's our main bread and butter. And so for this sort of machinery, we're providing some of this machinery to countries in Cambodia, like Toyota, like Provida, Ford, all these companies, we are putting equipment into with them.
So they don't have to import it, right?
So they don't have to import it.
Yeah, makes sense.
But even beyond that, we are building new technology, like pyrolysis machine with our own design and our own way to really innovate on the former pyrolysis machine that existed. So we are making those changes.
As in for health, paralysis.
Pyrolysis to convert biomass to biochar for fertilizer and for other use.
Oh, okay.
And then that is, doing the carbon capture in that process. And so, we're designing and we're building all this technology that really is our very own. And be able to really work with international company doing that, doing, joint ventures, doing long-term agreement, building these sort of equipment that when we bring different stakeholders to visit, all of them think that all of these equipment are being imported. But the reality, they are being built here. Sorry.
That's okay.
And this is the mindset shift. This is the shock that we want to bring to Cambodian manufacturing. We don't want to build just a simple process or simple product that easily being imported. We want to build tough, complex stuff that is going to make our values what it is. And I think the future for Quantum too, in the next few years, you're going to see that we're going to improve and grow our international presence very strongly.
Okay.
The goal for us is to build the supply chain here in Cambodia, and then have the models that we develop and the innovation that we develop in our factories, and then we can duplicate that in other countries as well.
Yeah, I think one thing I'm curious on is like, because I think when you originally started, you had obviously some B2C side of things, like with some of the EV stuff you were doing. How are you thinking about that now? I mean, it sounds like your business is mostly focused on B2B, on working with these large corporates to help them, be more efficient with their manufacturing here in Cambodia. Do you see any opportunity for B2C over the long term?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. What we've done with the B2C sector in our company before is we want to test those response. So we build a few B2C products, and we're going to continue build B2C product to test the market response. If the market response is ready for us yet, to really raise the standard, raise the perception of Cambodian product. So if we were to invest and only focus on B2C, we wouldn't have existed till today, because a company not only put out the products, the right product to the market, it has to be at the right time. And we don't think the Cambodian market was at the right time to receive Cambodian technology production made by a Cambodian company. And so it wasn't the right time. But we're going to continue to test every year or every 2 years. You're going to see we put out some product from complex to very simple product that we produce, and we're putting it out. In the future, we're going to put out more and more. So the rate that we're putting out B2C product going to be more and more, but it might be less exciting. It might not be electric scooter, but it might be a valve, or it might be a piping system that we're putting out. And so those sort of less exciting but more essential is what we're going to focus on. Quantum, we're still building out our full vertical integration process. And so right now we're about maybe, depending on how you look at it, maybe 30, 40% there. So we still have a long way to go. And even with 30 or 40%, it's already unique to a level where we can put such a good product and such an efficient product out there.
And the one thing have been noticing is definitely the adoption of EVs in Cambodia is really growing. And I also see the charging stations are improving. Is that an area you still have like want to focus on over the long term?
I think we do want to focus on in the long term, but we have to be careful how we could compete in this.
Yes.
And I think a wrong investment into EV sector will bankrupt your company.
Right. There's some big, there are obviously some big players that are willing to just throw money, and also keep prices relatively low.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you compare the financial reserve, the war chest between companies that can lose money and compete in the market like Cambodia, if you pick the wrong battle, you'll lose every single time.
Yeah.
And it's some industry, it's a winner takes all. You're right.
Right.
And when Grab comes in, Grab is a winner takes all market as well.
Right.
And they can lose money for the next 10 years, and it wouldn't hit their bottom line.
Right.
But Cambodian company gonna struggle to do that. So that's why EV we have to be very careful in terms of how we want to compete, especially in the B2C market. I like to say that B2C market, a large portion of the budget has to go to marketing. Now, is Quantum ready to invest millions into marketing? I don't think we are. So I think that's why our focus right now is to fully build a full vertical integration factories that really focus on B2B first, and then we would have subsidiary that focus on B2C. But until we build a full vertical integration, it's going to be so hard to compete against international company that coming here.
Right. Okay. And who would you say? I'm just curious. Who would you say the new investors are mostly in the space that you're looking at? I know you mentioned like Toyota, a few other players. Where are you seeing that diversification of where the investors are, like that are entering into the market?
I think you will see more companies, big brand name, like household name like Toyota,
Right.
Coming from Japan or coming from other developed country, moving to Cambodia. You will see that. Like I'm willing to bet that in the next 5 years, that's going to be another one or two major household name.
Yeah, we just
moving
got a
here.
big announcement from like a British brand called Fraser's Group. They run they run one of the top. It's like the decathlon of the UK, and so they just said that they're going to be launching like quite a lot of stores in Cambodia. So yeah, and actually I also noticed like how many new schools, like international schools that are launching here, and even a few universities. There's a lot of there's a lot of people thinking, okay, I'm gonna add on. I think the same thing. I think healthcare is also gonna start to go through that. I think a lot of obviously the Thai market is huge for that, and they're obviously shareholders in a lot of already quite a lot of the businesses, a lot of the healthcare businesses here. Yeah.
Yes, the medical tourism sector is huge in Thailand. But all these sectors, like you will see the Cambodian company or joint venture between Cambodian and international company will try to bring those sector in the country. And the quality of all of these companies that are going to come up is also going to be so huge and so competitive. And that's why I think private sector has been doing quite well in terms of raising the quality, contributing to the GDP. All these for the Cambodian, the labor market here is also a big thanks to the private sector, to the special economic zone manufacturing company.
Yeah.
It's now if we can get the country on the same page, right? And I think we are moving forward lockstep, putting investment and also just changing the mindset. Coming back to education, changing the mindset in education. What needed the people here to learn, right? We need to be placed the important on technical skill like engineering, and I think until that mindset change, there might be some labor shortage in the highly technical skill sector, but all of the right ingredients are here. We no longer have to say, hey, maybe one day we can have a center that can train advanced manufacturing. We don't say that anymore.
Right.
Now all of the ingredients are here. Now let's put those ingredients to use. And the way we put those ingredients to use is honestly just a few decisions that need to be made in the public education side that really open up the floodgate for all of our youth and all of our engineers to really touch, learn, and be ready for the 21st century of manufacturing.
Yeah, well, great. Well, yeah, on that note, I think that's a great way to finish it out here. Yeah, Richard, thank you for coming back. This is your third time. We've been going 5 years now, and I think this would be your third time. I'm looking forward to many more.
Thanks, Max. Thanks for having me back. Always enjoy talking to you.
You too. Okay.